Crow Country is one of the most charming games I have played recently, and it was at the very top of my list of games to play for a long time now. It's a survival horror game akin to Resident Evil and Silent Hill, but with its own twist on the genre with how it presents itself. Is this the back rooms? It's scary and presents a haunting atmosphere when it wants to, but can actually make you laugh or smile at another moment. The game is cute as hell, man. I mean, look at these guys. I also like the way they flop down when you shoot them. You play as Mara Forrest, a 25-year-old firearms expert for the police force, investigating a rundown and closed amusement park, Crow Country, to find answers about the missing park owner, Edward Crow. Why is he missing? Why did he shut the park down 2 years ago? And are the horrible things said about the establishment true? Taking the role of Mara, you head into the heart of the park to find out. From the moment you fade in and take control of Mara, the game's atmosphere is on full display, and only develops over the course of the game as you meet new characters and complete puzzles in the park to unlock new areas. Speaking of which, puzzles that question my intelligence as a human being. Let me explain. Resident Evil is one of my favorite series ever, and in those games, the puzzles are easy enough where a baby could complete them, in which case, I'm okay, I can handle it. In Crow Country, you walk into a diner that has a locked door with a code lock on it, and on the opposite wall is a note reading, "Can we get the code for the front door changed, please? It's far too easy to guess. Is it the factory default or something?" I scoured the whole room for the code, couldn't find it, so I ran out and tried to look for a memo that gave me the code. Must have missed it, so I ran around doing other stuff, being stuck, hitting every trap along the way, until I made my way back to the diner an hour later, where it finally clicked that it was 1, 2, 3, 4. I digress. Where was I? As we make our way through the entrance to the park, we meet a man named Arthur. Injured, we help him back to the car as he warns us about monsters that are roaming the park, though he might have been cut by the fence he trespassed through. We enter the only door that's available to us and find ourselves face to face with the same monsters Arthur mentioned, and make use of our bullets that Mara had so carefully prepared to bring. After ridding the monsters, we continue to find ourselves in our first save room. We make note of our surroundings, finding some supplies, books and notes that will document future memos, and a roaring fire that blesses us with hope as we unlock our save point. Why are there monsters here, and where did they come from? The fire is cracking softly. Staring into the flames, I feel something. It's a curious mixture of hope and dread. Maybe everything will be okay, and maybe it won't. From here, the game opens up a bit and allows you to complete areas as you see fit, and in different orders as well. My playthrough of the game was wildly different from my friend's playthrough, who would be in areas that I didn't go to until late game, which is pretty cool. The game having a slight Metroidvania influence as well as traditional survival horror really helps with the game's exploration, immersion, and replayability. I just feel bad about the puzzles. I will not do them justice in this video. Might be a pattern to this pain, just saying. Like in the intro, over the course of the game, it'll start to rain, the park will get darker, and enemies and environments will become a lot more deadly as you progress in figuring out the plot and secrets that the park is hidden away from the public eye. After exploring the entrance and part of Fairy Tale Town, we make our way into the small, campy, yet merryful haunted hilltop. This is one of my favorite areas in the game because of how campy and spirited it is. It gives you the feeling of being in a haunted house where it's horror themed, but it's a lighthearted fun because you're not, gonna die. We run into a girl named Julie trying to enter the locked metal door, and being the good Samaritan we are, we go the long way around and help her in, and enter a crypt where we run into a compass puzzle, the only puzzle where I wasn't stumped for more than 10 minutes. Also, don't think I didn't see the sweet shotgun waiting for me. Yes! Give me it! No! Nah, all I got was a boss fight. After securing the route around, we let Julie in as she sets up the entire diorama of evidence around Edward Crow. And as we look into the documents she laid out and a note in the adjacent room, we piece together that she is a lawyer looking for Edward Crow to get answers from him about the recent actions and controversies that have taken place. We also conclude that the park was shut down because of an incident involving a young girl named Elaine, who was attacked by a guest, as Edward and his employees would call them. Monsters to us. We will learn more later, but Crow Country was built on top of a very rich deposit as they were mining for gold, and were doing so by dissecting these root-like antennas under the earth. The pool from which these roots were rising from was also the source from where the guests were appearing, and one of them was trapped in a cell by Edward, leading to a lost girl getting attacked by him, hospitalizing the girl from infection, and then having to shut the park down due to the incident. After talking to Julie, we press on to find Edward Crow and head into Ocean Kingdom. We enter the arcade and play some games before blinding Weird Guy with our flashlight, turning him into Marvin, a business partner with Edward Crow. After age shaming us, he lets it slip that Tolman is the main root excavator and he's in a room somewhere nearby. We walk into the back rooms and... Jesus Lord. I saw you in it, you goob. I think now would be a great time to talk about the combat and exploration. Combat is your balanced affair of collecting and managing resources, then using them when you think is right, depending on where you're going and how much you have left. The game is not selfish when it comes to healing and ammo, so there's a feeling of leniency when confronted with a mini-boss or challenging hallway that you would just rather rid yourself of enemies. Other than that, you aim and you shoot. Pretty simple, but like all of the game, it's charming. That's all fine and dandy. What I would like to talk about now are these dastardly traps some thief in the night keeps plopping down all over the park. I must have hit these bad boys more than like 20 times. If your resources dwindle, it's because of these things.
Gummy bear.
At least it was for me. New monsters will spawn over time as you complete puzzles and collect key items to keep the game tense and engaging. And to my knowledge, even though more spawn, they do not respawn. However, traps, on the other hand, I do believe respawn. For this gentlemanly scholar would take some down or crash into them, run around lost for ages just for them to be back the next time around so I could get my leg ripped off.
That wasn't bad at all.
I'm not bashing the traps in the game. I think they are a great way to pace the player. I guess I'm saying all of this to say I might have a skill issue. We meet Tolman, the chief root excavator. He doesn't tell us much, besides to leave and that the elevators are broken and if we want to fix them, then we are on our own. So we get to work. After fixing the elevators, we make our way down underground where we can see a lot of the roots and machines that were used to cut and harvest them. It's also littered with guests, so I hope you saved up your ammo. In one of the excavation sections, we run into Marvin and Tolman who are arguing. When we talk to them, we figure out that Marvin is on the run from the police because of the mining operation and how he was selling the gold in Brazil because there was too much and it was too pure. Another part of the reason was he didn't want the government investigating where the gold was coming from, most likely because of the phenomena surrounding what's going on. He says he came back instead of bailing to get Edward's help, but Mara surmises it's more of him wanting to drag Edward down with him. Talking to Tolman, it seems he just wants us to leave and might understand why we came to find Edward Crow in the first place, but nothing is ever explicitly said. We play as Mara, and in turn, we hear her inner thoughts, but there are still a few things we are left in the dark about, and why we're looking for Edward Crow is one of them, though we can maybe guess. Upon entering the elevator, we arrive at the main office of Edward Crow, and there's a woman throwing up in a corner, most likely because she was grazed by a guest. We help her out and she tells us her name is Natalie Crow. She is the one that filed the missing persons report for an investigator to come out and look for her father, and that would be us. Mara Forrest, firearms expert. Says it right here on our badge, see? Or so we think. The task was actually assigned to a Harrison James, and Mara says that he couldn't make it because of problems with his car. After talking to her, we conclude that to get into the office of her father, we need to grab a golden key. And I think this would be a good point to give a spoiler warning. Everything past this point is going to be heavy in plot spoilers, and we're going to be putting pieces together, so if you don't want to be spoiled, skip to here. By this point in the game, we have 95% of the map filled out, we got most of the key items, and we've been told most secrets. It's time to start moving everything into place. Like a puzzle or something. One thing I have not mentioned are the secrets in the game. There are 15 in total, and each will give you a special reward for finding them. Whether that be a gun, or an upgrade for a gun, or like some awesome sneakers that have too much grease on them. They all add to the exploration, and in the small amount of replayability this game has, minus the rank system, which is pretty cool as well, but I digress. We explore some more and complete a couple more puzzles, and as we make our way out of Fairy Tale Town, we run into Mr. Harrison, who arrived at Crow Country later than planned, but with a sick-looking bicycle though. He says that he was supposed to arrive hours ago, but some kid broke into his car in the morning. I mean, I know all the characters comment about how short we are for being a cop, but that doesn't mean anything, right? He asks if we've seen Natalie. We tell the truth and he tells us to go back to the car and leave, that it's not safe to be here. Why does everyone want us to leave, bro? Let me do what I want. He leaves, as Mara thinks to herself that she really didn't think he would show up. Afterwards, we grab the golden key and enter Crow's office, where the phone rings and Crow talks to us. See, Over the course of the game, you will get phone calls from a person that has a very specific words to say that kind of add another layer onto the mystery of the story, and after a while we figure out it's Crow by straight up telling him. Most of the earlier phone calls make sense when you get later in the game, and now that we're here, I think it's appropriate to start bringing them up. In Crow's office, we find a projector with different slides of guests on them, a sick-looking camp room, and a diary from when Crow was a kid. Natalie enters the office, and before we leave, she says she knows why we came here and begs Mara not to kill him. She still might have a chance to save her father, and Mara doesn't reply. And with that, we have reached the end game. We have the necessary items to reach the last area and put a dot on the questions still lingering, and hopefully end this nightmare of a theme park. We just have to find Crow. We go to the center of the park, move the animatronic Crow that we have passed numerous times, and enter the elevator. We arrive at a rusty room with several guests roaming around, and we dispatch them before moving on. In the next room, we come face to face with a tragic end to Harrison. We only knew him for a short time, but sad nonetheless. We think he was killed by some monsters, but he was actually shot, as Mara feels guilty, like she could have caused something to happen. Harrison James, ID number 05061. Date of birth, January 12, 1965. Firearms expert. I tried to stop him from coming to Crow Country, but he really wanted to help. We look at our ID we've seen since the beginning of the game and realize that it's Harrison's, and that it's been tampered with. We did that, right? Are we actually Mara? And if we aren't, who are we? We continue on and eventually run into Tolman once again. He won't let us through, and when we tell him about Harrison, he already knows. But he didn't know it was done with a gun. As we tell him, Marvin arrives, aimed at our back. Through the confusion, Marvin tells Tolman that even though we aren't an issue to his plans, we know too much and could cause issues for him if any of this were to come to light. Before he puts an end to things, the grate next to him shakes and Julie pops out of the vent, knocking him off the platform and saving us. She's in the vent because of a scene earlier where she gets sucked in, but my headcanon is she just likes it in there. She tells us that when she was pulled into the vent by the monsters, it didn't seem like they wanted to hurt her, and Tolman adds that they most likely wanted to communicate. Mara gets short with them, saying that Harrison's body is in the room prior, Natalie is in Crow's office, and Arthur is still in the car at the entrance, and they should go take care of things. Tolman knows what Mara is thinking, but she is steadfast. She says thanks, the two leave, and we march onward towards Crow, finally. What fate awaits us, we don't know. Elaine Marshall, Edward Crow. We are the little girl from a couple years ago that got attacked by the monster. The girl that has been in a hospital without a cure. The girl who stole Harrison's car and led him to his death. The girl that came to get revenge on Edward Crow. He asks us how we're feeling, and Elaine bites back with harsh words. There is no cure. She's only been getting worse. She's sick and tired. She fled the hospital and came here not to kill Crow, but to tell him face to face that she is dying. The infection will kill her, and with her, Edward as well. She didn't realize that he was affected too. He says, of course, everyone who has been exposed to the guests have been infected. When the first guest escaped from the pool, he locked the guest in a cell above so he could monitor and help him. He agrees that it was a bad idea. He is much farther along than Elaine is in the infection, but because of her bloody escapade, she might not be far behind him. I like that phrase, bloody escapade, in this scenario. Makes Elaine seem like the most badass 17-year-old on the planet, just blasting monsters on a revenge kick. Shockingly, Crow says that there is a cure, and that he had been reverse engineering it by using the decaying guests that have come out of the pool. And the vials we have on our person are the very cures that he made. There are 5 of them, and with 6 of us being alive currently, 1 will have to sit out, and that one would be Crow. Behind us exists the pool. Sprouting roots stretch high, the same roots that Crow desperately worked on for years. Crow drops a bomb saying that the pool is a gateway and that the guests are human beings who attempted to travel through it and emerged here. The reason they are so disfigured is because of Crow and his handling of the machine. How much he has tampered with it has caused issues with the portal and its travelers. The roots, acting like antennas that act as a guide for the humans to follow, and with them destroyed, of course it would cause some issues. Elaine then asks, where are they coming from, and what is on the other side of the pool? Crow says that the very first guest to come through the pool was almost human, and he could speak. He spoke to him, and wrote down why he came and who he was. He then went back to harvesting the roots, clearly a bad choice. Edward Crow, the man who caused all of this, wants to enter the pool before he dies, and see what is on the other side, as he thinks it would be a fitting end for him, and tells Elaine that if he comes up as something else, to kill him. He then hands her the note he wrote with the first guest and drops into the pool, leaving us alone. In the silence, we read the note in horror. 2106, uninhabitable, ruin. We come 1988, last chance, warn, stop, change. The year 2106 has become uninhabitable for humans in that time, and have created a portal of sorts to come to the past to warn us so we can make the change necessary to stop whatever is happening in the future. Sadly, history may repeat because of one man's greed. As Crow said, after hearing the man's words, he continued harvesting the gold and working on the roots, increasing the corruption and the spread of the bacteria that is carried in all of the guests. The desolation that awaits the human race 100 years from now could be because of the highly contagious virus that all of our characters have been dealing with up to this point. Even with the cure, chances are very slim, but that's not the answer we have now, and we have one final boss to take down.
Epilogue. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006. 2006.
Crow Country is a very special game with the most charm in any medium that I've experienced in recent years. I love the presentation, the story is very fun to figure out, and the squeaky shoes are still squeaking. Mara is already a super popular heroine, and the game is getting outstanding reviews, so maybe we'll get a sequel, huh? Though I think that game ends great on its own, just wishful thinking. I really hope this game gets the following and players it deserves because the experience is well worth the dollar. And with that said, I think it's time to move on to the next game. I'll try to be a little bit more respectful of your time on the next two, so thanks for hanging with me. Nah, I'm just kidding. I wouldn't do that to you. I did it to myself though. Oh my. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why is Pizza Tower here? This is a horror game video, ain't it? Well, besides the main menu jump scare, there's a few things. Pizza Tower is a fast-paced 2D. Dude, I'm gonna have to cut out so many mic pops for the P's in this video. 2D platformer that has pretty much everything. Amazing gameplay, unreal soundtrack. Great replayability. Throw in sprinkles of horror and a large clump of humor, and you got yourself a meme game that has the quality of a AAA title that can stand up there with the rest of them. Halfway through playing this game, I realized even though it's light on the horror aspect, I'm still putting it in the video. The game is too good not to talk about. But then I see this face and I'm sticking with my original assessment. Now the story is kind of weird and you can look online and see a lot of different opinions on what it is, so I'll give mine. You play as Peppino, a superhero pizza chef who has to fight the pizza sun god because he hates Peppino and his pizzeria. So to avoid his pizzeria being shut down by the pizza sun god, he has to climb up multiple layers of a giant castle, find ingredients, and take out the competition so he can get back to his humble life as a pizza maker. With the help of Gustavo, you blast your way through 20 levels, all with different mechanics and locations, fight the evil mascots, besides Noise, he's awesome, and beat the evil pizza sun god. The story is not the main point of the game, it's the incredible mixture of gameplay, replayability, and music that keeps you coming back. And horror. Gotta throw that somewhere in there. It's the only way it makes sense being in the video. I think a really cool mechanic in the game is that the player character does not have health or lives for that matter. I eventually realized that I haven't died in the game, only gotten these shaky messages saying I've hurt Peppino a certain number of times, and that made me sad and scared. It's refreshing because it's an original take on a platformer, but it allows the casual gamer to enjoy the game at their own pace and get an experience that they want out of the game, as well as letting completionists learn and master the game, getting the S ranks and eventually the P ranks. And there's a lot to master. Not only are there achievements for every level, 3 of them, but there's a feature called, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. At the end of most levels, you will enter a mode where you have to run all the way back to the beginning of the level, albeit through a different route under a time limit. Once the time limit expires, you don't just die, you are then chased by the big bad to add some tension, and then you die. But once you beat the level in the game, you unlock the second lap, which gives you a massive point boost to your score, but makes you run through the end bit one more time. More often than not, running out of time and fighting the big boys. I got lost again. Achievements, S&P ranks, second lap, like 50 costumes to collect. Not to mention an update that just added a whole new character and campaign to play. It's kind of insane. And it's not part of the experience, but I haven't even mentioned that this game has like 5,000 mods for it, including co-op, new levels, characters like Sonic, female Peppino, and Vaporeon? Why? The following for this game is still massive, and new mods, updates, and features are being developed for this game daily. Pizza Tower is a must-play for anyone that likes really anything. It fits in like every genre, honestly. Insanely fun gameplay that you can hop on, play a couple levels, then bow out when you need to. I highly recommend. And before we move on to Act 3, I want to transition by showing off a few pieces of this game's music. And no more jump scares, promise. When I first jumped into Conscript, I really didn't know what to expect. I knew to expect a Resident Evil style horror game like in the classic vein, but other than that I had no idea what kind of game Conscript was. I didn't know whether to expect monsters or zombies. There's rats, but I played after the patch, so they aren't that scary. Though there is an awesome gorilla in the game. What was great for me was going in with that mindset, only to be given a game that on the surface is just another World War I horror game. But it is so much deeper than that. The first third of the game, I found myself unimpressed. In my head, I had formed an opinion that was of a basic idea of what a horror game should be, and I wrote the game off as what I was seeing. But over the course of the game, that barrier in my head slowly was being chipped away subconsciously with how great the game's pacing was and interesting the game's locations and backdrops were. Until eventually, I hit an area that presents you with this. It then clicked with me that this game is horrific, but in a way that's not just outright scary, but tragic and depressing, and in turn became a beautiful game for me that is well worth its gold in the survival horror genre. I also suck at this game. You begin the game by reading a monologue. July 12th, 1916. The Great War has raged for nearly 2 years. Millions of husbands, fathers, and sons have already been sent to slaughter. The German army has hammered Verdun with artillery since late February. Their plan is to bleed France white. But yet she holds. This will be one of the longest and bloodiest battles of the entire war. We continue as we get more exposition from Andre, our main character. He is writing to his mom on the war front and updating her on how awesome the war is! Sorry, I want some lightheartedness. This game is pretty rough. For around 9 weeks, he has been stationed in Verdun, and he begins to speak about his brother Pierre. He is stationed and fighting up in Fort Souville, and made a recent recovery from a gas attack previously. Andrew is only a few hundred meters downhill from Pierre, in a support trench where they are constantly hammered by artillery. Andrew then mentions a watch that he and his brother have been searching for that belongs to their father, believing they lost it or left it in a locker at Fort Vaux, a holdout not too far from them. Fighting with the Germans for weeks on end, he exclaims that he doesn't see the point anymore. The fort has swapped hands numerous times, their food is running low, and the water has been poisoned. With the telephone lines being cut, orders have been slow from command, so there's a lot of waiting and miscommunication. Hey, I'm just saying, throw a couple of these on the field and we're good to go. He then says finally that tomorrow they will be able to go on break and that he will be able to bring his brother home once again. Promises made, promises kept. As artillery strikes once again and he exclaims, they're back. Vacation might be a little ways off. We get control of our character and this dude must weigh like 1,000 pounds to be shaking the whole damn screen like this. And another thing right off the bat is how noticeable, like, I don't know how to say this, but PSP looking this game is. It kind of wears it on its sleeve, and I don't mean that in a bad way. It's very nostalgic how the gameplay feels and how the menus look. I kind of dig it. We run around, collect some cigarettes, which are actually the currency in this game, also dig it, and meet our fellow soldiers as we get our orders to head to the front. It's time to go to war. We also get a shovel, also dig it. As we make our way to the front, we run into an enemy that came behind enemy lines and get our first taste of combat. We find ourselves in the bunkhouse and it seems our brother has been knocked out cold. We say our prayers, lay him on the bed to rest, and continue to defend our position. As we continue our path, we find a rifle and some ammunition surely to prove useful to us. During this expedition to the front, the game is constantly building upon itself the aura of war and the dinginess that comes with battle. The rooms are worn down and everything is trashed. Fighting for your country is noble and conflict is inevitable, but like expressed in Andrew's letter in the beginning of the game, when does it become meaningless? We talk to our captain and he sends us into the flames to fight the Germans and defend our fellow men and country. It's early, but this would be the best time to talk about the combat, encounters, and the warfront sections of the game. The game is pretty heavy in combat if you compare it to other survival horror games. Through the course of the game, you end up with like 10 different weapons more or less, excluding grenades and traps, so there's a lot of ways to dispatch your enemies. Most of them being guns and a few being melee weapons, in which the latter is a tough task, and especially later in the game. When you first grab hold of your character, an early memo will give you tips on how to play the game and be successful. The game pretty much tells you to not be in close quarters and stay at range, and I would take that to heart a little bit later because melee kinda stinks. To do any meaningful damage, you have to charge up a hit and wait for them to walk in a line of sight, then slam them with your weapon, then run back, charge up a hit again, then slam them, then run away again, slam them, run away one more time, slam them. You get it. I believe the melee combat was purposefully made this way to not only add suspense, but to punish the player for getting too close and or wasting enough resources to bring you to this point. You don't have to kill everyone in this game, and there is an aspect of stealth in the sense of hiding in little spots to avoid confrontation, and even whacking enemies in the back of the head for a one shot on half of the enemies. If you're gonna use melee, stealth backshots are the way to go. Just be careful, later on when you get to the bruisers and the flamethrower enemies, they will take an immense amount of backshots, let alone normal melee hits, and that's when you bring out the big guns. You start with a rifle and a basic pistol, and while you may think the pistol is going to be your workhorse, you would be mistaken, for the rifle is your bread and butter of the game's gun combat. Not only is the damage great for your starting weapon, you get a staggering amount of ammo, and it's accurate to boot. It will also teach you the gun mechanics, as you have to aim for a little while you charge up the reticule to be accurate. And once you shoot for some of the weapons in the game, you have to load another bullet or shell before you fire again, so there's a slight learning curve. Though some guns you can just start blasting, even the machine guns later in the game need a second to become accurate, so you're not just spraying everywhere. There's more combat than you think there would be, and there's more strategies to the gameplay than expected, but that's what makes the experience compelling. I also like how farther in the game your reticule gets more unstable to simulate exhaustion or stress. Neat touch. Now the kind of enemies you will run into are your typical soldier with gun, soldier with shovel, armored soldier, flamethrower. Thankfully, one enemy I don't have to stress about are the rats. They patched them into oblivion. They were never an issue for me when they used to be an actual issue in the game. Get this, there's an item in the game called fuel canister, and with the light you can burn the bodies of soldiers you kill to prevent rats from spawning. In my playthrough, I didn't even realize that was the use of the item until halfway through the game. Oh, dude. I think you're supposed to burn the bodies with the lighter and with the fuel. That's what it's for. I was never poisoned by them, and they do minimal damage and are easy to outrun, and I played on hard, so thankfully we're safe. Now, before we continue with our story, we are about to enter a warfront scenario, and there are sections in the game when you're basically playing defense of an area and killing as many soldiers as you can. It's a super combat heavy part, as they give you ammo, grenades, you even get to use massive machine guns to chop through incoming ranks. There's several sections like this in the game, and they are great set pieces that lead into following chapters or end off a chapter in a big way. You're even able to hide during the battles to save your ammo, at the risk of being called a coward and getting a different ending, as there are 4 endings in the game with slight variations to each, totaling 7 of them. During my playthrough, I fought in all of them, so we will be able to see the other defenses and attacks, but I digress. Hopping back to the story now, after a lengthy defense, we are gassed from the enemy and are forced to retreat. We go through a tunnel and push through the mortars to the other side without getting hit, and before we can make it back, after realizing Pierre is gone, we are knocked unconscious. Well, this is different. We seemingly get a flashback scene of Andrew running around his home and surroundings. We can look at some rooms and get a sense of where he came from. It's a really cool sequence and makes you think more about the overarching plot going forward. This won't be the last time we appear here, but for now we go to sleep and continue onward. Chapter 2 is the beginning of one of the largest portions of the game. At least it was for me, because, I don't know where I'm going. Again, we wake up after being knocked out, now in the enemy's grasp as they have captured this point, and our goal is to meet up with our captain once more to mount a counter-offensive. But getting there is going to be harder than expected. We're gonna have to find help, and look for Pierre. There are enemies crawling everywhere, so we have to deal with them all while completing puzzles and gathering resources to make our way to the captain. Chapter 2 has major exploration in the trenches, and ya boy, he loves getting lost. But how you tackle the chapter is completely up to you. There are multiple puzzles and routes in this chapter and in the following chapters that allow you to handle them how you would like. There's usually just one main key item that would keep you from completing the main route, however. Like for me, In chapter 2, I must have run around for an hour in a circle around the map like Voss from Far Cry, going insane because I know I wasn't missing something. Oh, but no, I was. I just didn't open my eyes enough in this pitch black ass underground railroad. The exploration is really fun in this game. Every chapter has a main goal to achieve, and you're given a giant playground to achieve that goal. Eventually, we make our way to the fort, and after solving a basic puzzle that I completed in 1 minute, we enter a holdout with our comrades and get our next orders and some information. Okay, I walked in this room and nearly shit myself. The lieutenant thought we were dead and was surprised to see us. The next orders we are given are to retake the fort, and when we ask about our brother, he states that he might have been taken to Verdun. After making our way through the support trenches in the fort, we get to our captain once again, who simply states, "You know the drill, son." Maybe think I was reliving the same day, but as you'll learn more, there are no supernatural elements in the game. It is strictly the horrors of war. We make our way to the front and once again defend our side with our lives. This time, we went on a rampage. And this time, we succeeded. The captain congratulates us and lets us know that our brother has actually been transported to Fort Vaux after his injuries were cleared. He relays that the men there are in serious need of support and are trapped in a basement under fire, and that our brother was the one who sent the message. We are then given a war-deciding task. As a runner, we are to make our way towards Fort St. Michael, as there are garrisons full of men there that are ready to fight, and let the captain know that we need their men to help Fort Vaux, as if it falls, the Germans will march over Paris before winter. He states he will meet with us at the support trench once the task is done. He wishes us good luck, and we head off. Making our way south towards St. Michael, we literally trip down some stairs and knock ourselves out in a flashback sequence. I know. This time we actually complete some tasks for our mother, talk to Pierre, and get to know a little bit more about him. As we go through the flashback sequences, we can understand how peaceful and happy lives are when they are not ripped from their families and thrusted into hell itself. Here we can get a sense of their home life and even a taste of what they do in their free time, their hobbies, and what they actually want to do with their lives. It's a really cool set piece that juxtapositions the intensity and horror of real life war and the peaceful lives that are destroyed when faced with its reality. I've always thought war was the most evil thing there could be, as it ruins every aspect of life, and playing this game only reinforced that thinking. After exploring, we go to our room and settle down for the night. We wake up to our dear, nameless friend, the merchant who has been helping us this whole time. He lets us know what's going on and informs us of the dangers between here and St. Michael. For now, we can prepare for the journey ahead. When you enter a safe room in this game, you get the safe blue glow and the calming music, but you also get to talk to the merchant. He works the exact same way you would expect him to. With those cigarettes we have been grabbing all game, we can trade them to buy more weapons and resources like healing and ink ribbons, and with the gun parts scattered about, we can use those to upgrade our weapons to maximize our firepower. You can pretty much buy everything in the game near the end, as each subsequent chapter opens up the shop little by little, so you'll never really have that hard of a time. Not to mention in the settings of the game, you can turn off limited saves and more storage from the start if you wanted to. Kind of a cool feature. After gearing up, we walk out of the safe haven and make our way towards our objective. We finally make our way into St. Michael. After pushing through ranks of soldiers and solving tough puzzles, one of our first allies says he hasn't seen our brother and didn't even think that the army still put friends and family in the same sections anymore. They started separating them to stop reckless behavior and dropping morale. It's sad to think about that they go to these lengths for the army, and they know how sad it is, but it's the way life was back then. Another soldier says it's a bloody mess out in the front, while another says that they have been mortaring non-stop. When we talk to the captain about our letter we were sent to run, he gets angry. He tells us we look like shit, so he allows us to rest up. As we drift off, we are once again taken into a safe place, a flashback before the war. As Andrew, we can run around, take in more of the environment, and learn about the backstories of him and his brother. His brother teaches piano from time to time and learns how to draw as well. Pierre is an artist at heart, and it's heartbreaking to know what happens to these brothers as they are thrust into the war they want no part of. After exploring some more, once we're ready, we drift off into sleep yet again. Time to get a move on. Now that our letter has been delivered, it's time to head back to the front. But first, we need to meet up with our lieutenant and let him know the good news. Afterwards, he informs us that the first wave just went over, but the second wave is under fire and needs support from artillery. He also lets us know that there are people locked up in the barracks that aren't coming out, and they need to go to the front, and if they try to run or refuse, we are told to kill them. After being commended for our service, we are left with our orders, as we need to launch the artillery, recruit the hidden ranks, and make our way to the second wave and push the assault. On our way through the support trench, we are almost ambushed again, but are saved by a fellow soldier named Marcel. He spots us some cigarettes and a machine gun, and points us in the direction we need to go. The artillery and the blockhouses of men are back in the original trenches from the beginning of the game, and once we get a key to unlock them, it's on, baby. This is your first dose of true backtracking in the The backtracking is well thought out, as you can use certain resources to stop respawning enemies, and depending on your actions earlier in the game, could have shortcuts for yourself that will make your time easier. You will go into separate doors in different areas from when you first got there. You might have to shoot your allies once or twice, but it'll be well worth it as this chapter has a lot of great loot. By the way, the machine gun, this thing is a beast. If you upgrade this thing all the way, it basically has the power of the rifle in a 30-round magazine. The only gun stronger is a bigger, badder machine gun and the elephant gun, which eventually we run into the big boy, and we are forced to walk it to the artillery cannon to support our allies. The catch to this section is you can't put it in the storage and there's no shortcuts, so you have to play it stealthily or get punished. Once we get to the cannon, you gotta load it properly, and luckily I did it on the first try. I can only imagine what happens if you load it wrong. Next on our list is running through the blockhouses to gather the troops. Some of them are ready to go, and some of them need a little push, but we all get there. After completing our objectives, we finally make our way towards the front. We speak with the captain once again and says we were late, which is kind of ungrateful after all this. We were supposed to be in the second wave to go over, so we stash our personal belongings in the chest and make our way to the lineup. As we make ourselves right with God, we make our position and prepare for the deadliest fight so far. We climb over the mound and rush into war, killing enemies left and right, sprinting past the opposition to reach our goal, Fort Vaux. Our brothers dying left and right, blood splattering as primal screams can be heard. There's no thinking. Survival is our only instinct. We drop into the Germans' trench behind enemy lines as we scratch and claw our way through, eventually making it to a safe room where we load up for one of the toughest battles yet. I'm just kidding, it was actually quite easy. Being behind enemy lines, we get a good view of how the Germans are holding up, and we see a ton of it in Chapter 5, but their buildings are destroyed, just like ours. Supplies are low, and their holdouts are just as worn. We eventually run into a part of Pierre's scarf, and in a rage, we get a flashback once again. It's a little different this time. It's dark and dreary. As we run through the house, not much is going on, but sadness in the air. Soldiers are being called, and it's our turn to answer it. We think about the good times as we drift off into blissful sleep, unaware of the horrors that await us. We awake, once again, this time to the determination in our hearts and the stench of the dead in the air. This was the area that turned this game around for me from something I enjoyed to something I loved, even though it's through a morbid lens. Like I stated in the intro to the game, it really is just a World War I horror game. No supernatural elements whatsoever, just the tragedy of war, and it's on full display here. And what adds an extra layer of dread is that this is real. This isn't a fantasy world or made up scenario, this actually happened. Seeing the rows and rows of bodies, destroyed buildings and towns, memos of thriving family lives that are now ruined is dreadfully sorrow. That families and cultures were ripped apart and mutilated for what? And that's one of the themes I keep thinking about this game, the meaning. What was it all for? Man, it's getting dark. I need something funny. Stat. Going north, we see Fort Vaux, the end of the journey and our brother's destination. We are so close and yet out of reach behind a single lock. We leave for now and head southwest through the fields of bodies as we make our way towards the town. One of my favorite sections in the game. We enter and see it's deserted, at least for now. Basically, we're here for one thing only, and that's the key to Fort Vaux. To be able to get the key, we have to unlock the church, which has 4 plates that need to be found and put in the correct pattern. And I'm gonna be honest, I guessed it because I have no idea. To grab the plates, we're basically gonna be scavenging all over and under this town to find them, going through sewers, fighting rats, and launching missiles just to open a door, bruh. And this part is a little tough. There's a lot of enemies in dark places, a lot of armored enemies in dark places, and a lot of backtracking through dead bodies being devoured by rats, so now would be a good time to use that fire. After scouring around and grabbing the plates, we arrive inside the church, and the first thing we interact with is the confession booth, as it gives us the great idea to go into the gas-filled basement. Hooray! At the end of the basement, however, we grab the Fort Vaux key. But afterwards, our gas mask breaks. We're so close. We need to just get out of here and head towards... We awake to find the medic treating our wounds. He lets us know about the situation at the fort and tries to deter us from going, stating most of our men didn't make it and there wouldn't be enough to make a difference. But he can see the determination in our eyes and gives in. He hands us some supplies and tries to tell us something important before he's shot dead through the glass window. We take what he gave and head outside to see chaos. Once again, nothing is safe from the horrors of war. We try to leave the town, but it's blocked off the normal way, so we have to take a detour. When leaving, you can see the flames piercing the road with fury. We make our way through the graveyard and in front of the fort, where we can finally continue and work towards our brother. If you don't want spoilers for the ending, you can skip to here. Thanks for watching up to this point. We're nearing the end. We got one final push towards our final confrontation, and as we burst through this fortress of hell, we will be going through yards of enemies, gas rooms, bloodied gutters, and rusted walkways. This chapter is the embodiment of war. We're here for one reason at this point, and that's to find Pierre. After all is said and done, after the misery and anarchy, we make it to the drop. We find Pierre, badly wounded as Fort Vaux begins to be pounded relentlessly by the Germans. If we want to save Pierre, we have to defend ourselves and our allies one more time. The room shakes as we hear machinery roar, sounding more like a monster than anything, and we are rushed by heavy reinforcements, and it's just us. Afterwards, we load up and head to the front. We see our lieutenant as he gives us one final roaring speech. We sprint out for one last fight. For Paris, for France, for Pierre. Exhausted, we walk towards Pierre. We're getting out of here. Bro, what is going on? What the hell was that? Now, in my playthrough, I missed the true ending by literally one item, and I felt dumb for missing it, but luckily it only misses us one scene. However, that scene is pretty important. The scene is just another flashback like all the other ones, but in this one, we get more context that fills out the story to completion. We learn that these are not flashbacks, but the future. We have been looking into the future this whole time, meaning Andre and Pierre have been drafted a second time. To see them drafted once again, to see Andre in the hospital suffering from PTSD, and to see the "they're back" quote one more time is heartbreaking. They're not in an endless cycle in truth, but they might as well be. These brothers have been through a lot, and to know that you can escape hell and knowing there's a good chance you can go back is true terror. Conscript is a game I'm really happy I got to sit down and try out. It pulled me into the survival horror concept, and it blew me away in how original of a take it was on the war genre. If you're looking for a horror game that is different from the rest of its contemporaries, you will not be disappointed. All three games have been a blast to experience, and I'm glad I got to share them with you. If you have any inkling to give these games a shot, please do. You will not be disappointed. We ate good this year in the horror genre. There were actually more games I played as well. But I mean, I had to get Pizza Tower in there, bro. I had to get Pizza Tower in. Hey, what's up, guys? This is Future Super here. This is one take. Not gonna edit this. I'm not even gonna soundproof it. It's literally just gonna be me talking into a mic. I do have it written down what I'm gonna talk about because I can't remember, but I'm just gonna start spitting. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you watching this video. I actually was gonna do 5 games. That's why I said it in the beginning. I was gonna do these 3 and then Hollow Body and Signalis. But I realized I was jumping from a 16-minute video to like an hour 30 long minute video, and Signalis could have been a literal like video in itself. That game is like, I mean, not only is it insanely good, but there's so many themes and story and endings and plot, and like that would have been way too much. And Hollow Body, it was a good game. I just didn't have much to talk about with that one. It was just going to be another intermission between Signalis, but I didn't want to have an intermission finish out the video. So I just kind of left it out. I might make a video on Signalis at some point, maybe, but that game, definitely play Signalis. Give Hollow Body a shot. Hollow Body's pretty cheap too. Signalis actually came out a while back, but that game's fire. This video, I feel like might have ended pretty quick too. Once I got to the Pizza Tower segment, I really started getting into a respecting your time kind of thing. I don't want to make too long of videos. I do like making longer videos, but I think if I want to try to stay around the 20-minute mark. But I mean, I do respect y'all's time and watching, and I really appreciate that kind of stuff. I feel like I'm constantly improving. I think that's one thing I wanted to bring up. I appreciate literally just watching. I don't have a lot of people. I just do it for fun. I make it for my friends, make it for my family. I feel like I'm constantly improving. Me talking has gotten so much better over the time of me doing this, and it's just because I sat down and I started throwing it out, and I think me just doing it is really making a big difference. I will say one thing is the audio quality is not where I want it to be at all. I am not content with it. I just don't have a way to improve it currently. I have to get some soundproofing stuff, and I got to put it on the wall, and I got to put more stuff in the room I'm in. So that I'm gonna work on. But I love making videos. It's been so much fun. It's been a really fun hobby. I've always wanted to do it, and now that I've kind of finally put pen to paper, I'm glad I'm here. Thoughts behind Crow Country, Pizza Tower, and Conscript. I really, really like those games a lot. There's a reason I made a video on it. I'm not going to do random videos for games I don't like. Those you definitely need to play. Crow Country was a freaking blast to play. That was probably my favorite of the three, and I love all three. All three are so good. All of them are 10 out of 10s. You need to play all of them. Even though Pizza Tower doesn't, I had to make it fit. I'll get to it. Crow Country was awesome. I loved how charming it is. The ending twist was awesome. Honestly, I really didn't even realize what was happening until it started happening. And it was really cool. It was such a cool ending. I really wanted to talk about it. I love how charming that game was. I love how lighthearted it was for having a really horrific story. And I've been a huge Resident Evil fan for a long time, so I definitely wanted to talk about that one. Pizza Tower, honestly, for some reason I went into it thinking it was a horror game, or like partial horror. There's not a lot of horror about it. It's just like there's scary faces sometimes, and like there's a jump scare, but I played it and I already committed to putting that in the video, and I already wanted it to be after Crow Country as like a break. So I was like, dude, I'm putting in it. I don't care. The game's too funny. The game's too fun. I'm a big Sonic fan too. So it's a great game to play. It's super, super fun. I'm definitely going to play more than that. And Conscript was a really, really awesome game that I didn't give it credit in the beginning, and I'm glad I stuck with it, because that's one of the games where like you stick with it and you get rewarded, at least for me, because near the end of that game, I was like, dude, this game is actually like really good. Pissed off I didn't get the true ending because I missed one watch. I had to look up the true ending. That pissed me off, but it's not the game's fault. In fact, I knew to go back to the locker. But anyway, whatever. What's coming up next? I got some ideas for videos coming up next. I definitely am going to do a metaphor short. You'll probably see the metaphor short if you watch my stuff before I even get this video out. Metaphor is pissing me off how good it is. RPG is my favorite genre. I slaughter RPGs. Metaphor is taking up too much of my damn time. I'm not gonna make a script for the metaphor short. I'm just gonna pretty much talk shit the whole time. Because it's so good, it's just taking up my time for making videos. But whatever. Metaphor is awesome. I'm gonna have a short with that coming up. Videos coming out next. I have a lot planned. I have a lot of videos planned. I don't know what main videos I want to do next for main games. I know Monster Hunter Wilds is going to be one. Absolutely. I was thinking of doing one for Sparking Zero. I just like, I'm a Dragon Ball fan, but I don't know it that deep. And the last time I played a Dragon Ball game was Tenkaichi. Like, no, that's a lie. I played whatever. I'm just going to keep going with it, but I have more games coming up. I have a lot of ideas for videos that aren't on current games. I got a Dreamcast video I want to make. I have a Genesis video I want to make. I have a lot of stuff that I want to do, even concept videos that aren't really like normal videos that I've been making, like game videos. They're going to be about games, but it's going to be either like a short or a playthrough or something like that. But I definitely have more normal videos that I'm going to be making. And I would say content wise, I'm going to start streaming as well. Streaming is going to start pretty soon. Monster Hunter Wilds will be the first stream. That'll be the first game that gets me into streaming. I'm going to try to stream 3 times a week. That's kind of like my thought process there. I'm going to try streaming 3 times a week, maybe starting at the beginning of next year when Wilds comes out. But before that, I want to do a little stream, kind of get used to it. Vampire the Masquerade. That was the other one I was thinking of. But I'm going to get that stuff sorted out. I'm working on just videos for now while I'm playing Metaphor. I don't have a lot of time, but once streaming starts, I do that. And then that's pretty much, I would say lastly, the last thing I wanted to talk about was Super. I've been talking about it a lot with my friends, and you know, the original name was Super Fun Guy. That was kind of what I went by on most of my things, like most of my gamer tags, my online personality stuff. It was Super Fun Guy. But over the years, I would say the past several years, I've just adopted Super, just Super, all caps, as like a shortened version of it. And every time I ask my friends, like, hey, should I change this? Should I, you know, do SFG or something like that? They say just keep Super. They like Super, and I like Super too. I like it. Super's already taken. There's a guy on YouTube. There's a really cool fighting game player that has Super. There's probably other people that use Super. I feel like it's an easy, common name that people would use. So I put I am Super, and I put Super in all caps, and that worked out for me. We were talking about, because there are multiple I am Supers on YouTube, that maybe I should try something else. But for now, I'm gonna stick to it. I'm gonna stick to my guns. It's not like I'm trying to do this for monetary gain right off the bat. Really, it's just a hobby. I really do like doing this for a hobby, and if anything, if my stuff gets people watch it, if people like it, if it blows past the other I am Supers, then I don't see what the harm is. I like I am Super. I think it fits my personality. I think it fits what I've been doing in the past years. I like all caps Super. So for now, I'm just gonna keep it. I'm gonna see what happens. I don't think it's hurting anything. And then I'll pretty much just go from there. I also like the little Adult Swim thing I do at the end. I've always liked that. So I'm definitely gonna keep that as well. But anyway, that's it. That's pretty much it. That's it for my rambling. This is gonna be one take. I'm not gonna edit this at all. I'm just gonna put it at the end so I can talk to you. I just wanted to talk to you guys for 10 minutes. But yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. Whoever watched it, friends, family, thank you guys. And any viewer who stumbled upon it, if you like it, I really appreciate you just enjoying it. That's pretty much it. Leave a comment and I'll talk to you, and leave some criticism. I know I can get better, and I'm getting better all the time, and these are really fun hobbies. I like documenting games I play, and I like documenting really fun games I like that I want people to know, like, hey, he made a video on this, he really likes it. There are a lot of games that I want to play, so I'm gonna keep at it, and I'll see you from there. So that's it. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for listening. I think I'm gonna add some bloopers at the end of this section, so we might have a little bit of bloopers at the end here. But yeah, take care. That's it. Bye, guys.